The line hypothesis suggests that each life is an instance of a specific individual. Also, the natural process that instantiates an individual to that host, that is, species, is independent of the specific biology, chemistry, that is, carbon, silicon, etc., or technological principles upon which such forms may be evolved, implemented, or depend for function or for its local evolution. Therefore, any individual may instantiate or live in any viable form in any viable environment in this universe. Ergo, Earth is not special. 1. Individual life, or you, is species independent. 2. The natural process that places you or any living being in the life they currently live is not dependent upon any particular chemistry, biology, species, or form, evolved or otherwise. Just as, for example, memory or intelligence does not depend upon any particular brand or type of technology for its implementation. That is to say, memory is abstracted from its implementation. Likewise, in nature is the individual life abstracted from any specific implementation of host form or species. The belief that you are your body stems from a lack of alternative perspective and supporting evidence, as well as from tradition, also from the powerful visual perspective imposed by sight and a prominent physical form. It is as much a misperception as was humankind's long-held belief in the Earth-centric universe. Likewise, it is a very convincing visual misconception only made more so by the advent of biology and genetic science, which describe the evolution and development of the physical forms presently on Earth. This misconception is further compounded by the very illogical belief, held even by educated individuals, that the function and operation of the brain defines one's individuality in nature. Clearly, this last point cannot be so, since most life forms on Earth do not have a brain and are not even multicellular. Evolution, the mechanism by which one's ecology mediates living hosts, species, is an important tier of understanding for living beings to evolve to be able to comprehend within any viable ecosystem in this universe. However, although difficult to initially fathom, understanding species evolution is a distant runner-up to understanding the natural mechanism which mediates the mobility of one's individuality, that is, one's position of view, or POV. This is why the understanding offered by the line hypothesis, by any name, is the single most personally important idea that any living being will ever have the opportunity to consider, regardless of species or ecosystem in this or perhaps any universe. Earth's archaeological and hard fossil record suggests that Earth's ecology has produced no more than one species capable of assimilating and making use of this knowledge regarding the natural mechanism by which nature mediates individuality in this universe. This is not to suggest what untold secrets Earth's soft species history has produced, but of which no indelible imprints of its existence remain. Nonetheless, the importance of this knowledge is precisely because the intelligence and circumstances, indeed the opportunity necessary for any culture to gain the capability to assimilate and make use of this understanding, is so rare. The evolved intelligence necessary for living individuals to comprehend their own natural implementation is one of the rarest and most pivotal evolutionary realizations in this universe for any ecosystem to develop, prove, and culturally accept. Mollusks can't do it. Ants can't do it. Only humankind currently has that incredibly rare and fleeting opportunity to comprehend, accept, and make use of this very real existence transcending knowledge. Further, the window of opportunity is not permanent, and once gone, for humankind, it may be gone forever. Currently, humankind is, as are all other species in Earth's ecosystem, wild. We define wildlife as those host cultures that have not organized socially and culturally to reduce their dependence on the resources circumstantially provided by chance to some useful or perceived extent. However, this is a somewhat self-serving definition. In reality, the true definition of wildlife is an ecosystem's lack of a culture, consisting of any number of species able to take deliberate control of individual instantiation into one's living circumstances. To continue, like all other species in its ecosystem, to be arbitrarily reinstantiated by the probabilities of random chance which mediates when, where, and in what form one will live in your next instantiation, in your next life. Failure to have evolved sufficiently to reach this stage of development is the very definition of wildlife. Neither farming, nor art, or tool-making, or even genetic manipulation of living hosts alone moves an ecosystem across this life and existence-altering threshold. Make no mistake, this achievement is indeed an ecosystem-altering feature. Ideally, once fully acted upon, the lines between species take on an entirely different significance, as any individual may live and experience life in whatever available forms they please for as long as they please. It all begins by discovering the entanglement cell and molecule. Of course, the details of this local implementation depend on culture, as some cultures may elect to permit the existence of only engineered rather than evolved host forms, and may elect to control which individual QEFs are instantiated to those select hosts. The ability to transfer between forms, independent of distance in this universe, once achieved, will blur the line of distinction that now exists in the human mind regarding life, individuality, and space-time. The importance of an idea like the line hypothesis stems from the fact that it marks the introduction to the understanding needed for living beings to escape the uncontrolled instantiation lottery of nature, which confines individuals within a particular ecosystem to untold lifetimes of arbitrary natural reinstantiation to randomly emerged host forms, the true definition of wild life. Such forms are incapable of assimilating and making use of such knowledge, and therefore unable to assume deliberate control over the process that mediates the individual's living circumstances. In the nearly 4 billion years of Earth life, consider one's lifetimes as, and the existence of, a species such as humankind, despite all of its proud prior achievements, amounts to nothing more than a narrow window of opportunity within which instantiated individuals to this capable host form may understand, comprehend, and act upon the true nature of life in this universe, to develop technology able to control when, where, and to what forms one's POV is instantiated. In essence, to control your being. Further, consider what a tragedy it would be if a culture such as this forfeits this singular opportunity only to embrace the ignorance which defines the wild condition. Like every other endeavor into nature's workings, its ramifications and its morality and dangers will be clear and present, but may nonetheless be regarded as a necessary price to pay for this essential next step in the evolution of life on Earth. The next fertile undiscovered frontier of science is the study of how the individual, or you, naturally inhabit this universe. This topic speaks to the really interesting question of how any life, you, came to be where you are in the form that you are. Consciousness, self-awareness, sentience are evolved attributes had by very few forms of life in Earth's ecosystem, yet all are just as alive in nature. Such attributes cannot be relevant to either nature's fundamental implementation of life, to being alive, or to experience. Experience may be enhanced by these attributes as they evolve in more complex hosts or species, but the phenomena which establish an instance of life likely brings no experience at all. The investigation of this universe is an essential and worthwhile endeavor for any thoughtful civilization, and essential to understanding life itself. You are life, and will always be, regardless of what form you take, or where you are located in existence. For your next life, your reinstantiation, after your current life ends, nature will not require that some aspect of you obey the universal speed limit, the speed of light, in getting to the next life-hosting location somewhere in this universe or in any universe. This theory proposes a framework for how nature handles this. Some may ask why anyone should care about the underlying nature and workings of life and being alive. This is a reasonable question. Surely there are trillions of living individuals on this earth alone that do just fine with no idea as to how they came into being. Why then should we? Surely so many perspectives can't be wrong. Of course, one can only be judged wrong or right on such matters if one has a cognitive choice. We human beings appear to be the only life forms on Earth that have this choice. The oft-peddled notion that everyone is entitled to their very own unique, correct perspective of the workings of being is a fallacy. It is true, however, that everyone may have their very own unique, incorrect perspective of the workings of being. So is your perspective correct, or is it incorrect? The question, how did I get here, turns out to have a very different answer from the question, how did my species get here? Here is this or any other particular planet orbiting any particular star in any particular galaxy anywhere in this universe or perhaps in existence. These two questions may seem to have the same subject, one species, but actually they don't. We is indeed a reference to one species. However, I is not. I, in the first query, is a reference to one's self, to one's being, and perhaps without realizing it, we are never referring to our body